Hi, this is Callister from Parabellum, and I'll be guiding you through our strategy for the ICC 10 Professor Putricide encounter. Professor Putricide is a conceptually simple three-phase encounter requiring a large amount of raid situational awareness, making its execution fairly difficult and unforgiving of mistakes. In the opening poll, Professor Putricide is brought to the south side of the room for a straight DPS burn. This also allows time for our off-tank to go to the table, collect the necessary chemicals, and make his transformation to the Abomination. Phase 1 introduces you to two mechanics that will persist throughout the fight. The first of which are ooze puddles that spawn below two random raid members at various times. These ooze puddles have a damage over time effect and should be avoided at all costs. The second mechanic of concern are green oozes and brown gas clouds that spawn at the north and south side of the room respectively. Green oozes form at the north side of the room and will randomly target a raid member, indicated by a green line. Once targeted, that raid member will be rooted to the ground and unable to move. If the ooze reaches its target, it will deal a significant amount of damage. However, this damage can be mitigated and divided amongst any raid member within 10 yards of its intended target. Upon detonation, the ooze will produce a knockback effect, and then repeat its targeting process until it is destroyed. Brown gas clouds will spawn from the south side of the room. Gas clouds will also randomly target a raid member and pursue them, applying a 10-stack debuff damage over time effect. It is imperative that the targeted raid member run away from this gas cloud, because if it reaches you, it will create significant raid-wide damage proportional to the amount of stacks that are currently on its target, most likely resulting in a wipe. At 80% health, Putricide will initiate Phase 2 of the encounter with a raid-wide stun. This stun may be avoided with a properly timed Mage Blink or Rogue Banish. Although it is not mandatory to have all oozes and gas clouds destroyed before the transition, it is advantageous, however, since you will spend the beginning of the next phase optimizing your DPS burn on the boss instead of any remaining oozes. Two additional mechanics are introduced in Phase 2. The first of these new mechanics is called Malleable Goo. In this ability, Putricide will target a random raid member and throw a small, green, bouncing goo at them. Although he prefers ranged targets, he can select melee targets. When the small goo detonates, it will create an AoE damage effect to anyone within a 10-yard radius and cause a 200% increased cast time. These should be avoided. The second new mechanic comes in the form of choking gas bombs, which appear randomly at the feet of Professor Putricide and are surrounded with a small brown gas cloud. If anyone comes in contact with this small brown gas cloud, they will see a reduction in 75% for their hit chance. Also, after a short period of time, these vials will explode, causing a significant amount of AoE damage. Throughout both Phase 1 and Phase 2, the Abomination has perhaps the most significant role in the encounter. The Abomination's job is twofold. First, he must keep the floor clean of any ooze puddles that spawn. In doing this, he will gain energy for two significant abilities. The first of these abilities is a slowing effect that may be placed on gas clouds or volatile ooze. It is imperative that this slowing effect is placed on either one of the oozes or gas clouds as soon as it spawns. The second ability is a stacking armor debuff that may be placed on volatile green oozes, gas clouds, or the boss. However, please take caution when using this ability. If you utilize too much of your energy, you may not have enough for the slowing effect that is required on the next ooze or gas cloud that spawns. Depending on your raid composition, there are several feasible strategies for being successful in this encounter. In this video, our raid group has 4 ranged DPS, 2 melee, 2 healers, and 2 tanks, with the off-tank as the Abomination. Because of our ranged heavy group, we found it easiest to stack the entire raid on the south side of the room before each green ooze spawned. This ensured a maximum travel distance for the green ooze, and therefore maximum DPS time on it. Most green oozes in this video were destroyed in 1 or 2 detonations. This strategy also carries some inherent risk that is important to highlight. With all your raid members clustered closely together, Malleable Goo becomes a larger player. The second issue is in the form of how raid members decide to stack around the person who is targeted and rooted to the ground by the green ooze. It is important that when you stack, you stay within 10 yards of that person, however, you must not stack directly on them. If all raid members stack upon the rooted target, it is guaranteed that the next ooze puddle will form beneath the rooted target, thereby subjecting them to dots from both the approaching volatile ooze and from the ooze puddle that has just spawned beneath them. The final point regarding the green oozes is the proximity of the boss to who is rooted. Although it may not seem a significant thing to have the boss close to the person who's rooted, consider the fact that your entire raid is stacking close to one location. If the boss happens to drop choking gas bombs on that location, it will wipe the entire raid. Therefore, in this video, you will see the main tank position the boss far enough away so that the choking gas bombs will not affect those stacking upon the rooted target, yet close enough so that the tank can also absorb and divide some of the damage that is induced from the ooze explosion. Regardless of how your raid chooses to deal with both the volatile oozes and gas clouds, it is imperative that they are all destroyed before the third phase transition stun occurs. You will lose the abomination in this phase, and therefore lose any slowing effect that that abomination could have put on any one of the oozes. It is also important for your abomination to have most of the ooze puddles cleaned up at this point, as they will continue to grow and serve as a soft enrage timer. In phase 3, it's just a straight DPS burn. The boss will continue to throw choking gas bombs, as well as malleable goo and ooze puddles. Since any additional ooze puddles are now here to stay, it is important to position your raid appropriately. If spread out around the room, ooze puddles will then form at various points randomly. If this happens, the room will be flooded even faster. If, however, you tank the boss and your raid is positioned very, very close to existing ooze puddles, you can kind of guide how the ooze puddles will fall on the floor and thus maximize the amount of time you have to DPS the boss in phase 3. In addition to malleable goo, choking gas bombs, and the ever-expanding ooze puddles, there's a stacking debuff that hits whoever is taking Putricide. This stacking debuff will increase the amount of damage the raid takes as a whole. In our strategy, we allowed 3 stacks to hit each tank, and then taunted back and forth each stack progressively until Putricide was killed. Thanks for watching, and good luck in your guild's next encounter with the 10-man version of Professor Putricide.